Hey guys, Happy New Year and welcome to another virtual gun show. I don't get to as many gun shows as I'd like to, but that's because the guns come to me. I have to be here because they come in every day. So this past week I got an assortment of guns in. Come take a look. So I have an assortment of guns here. In fact, a fun assortment of guns. We've got Norwegian pistols. We've got U.S., of course, German World War II pistols. Here's something from World War I. We have the Polish Radom. I've got a couple Nambus I want to show you. And then also some more items on the floor. They all wouldn't fit, but you can see I've got some 1911 Colts. They're actually from World War I. I got a couple artilleries. So I have a lot to show you. I'm not going to be able to focus on every one of these guns, but I'm going to hit the highlights so that you guys can stay home and get a virtual gun show. I'm going to start with some of the P-38s that I picked up. These are all the P-38s, and then there's a Browning high power made during the occupation by the German troops. So let's start over here. This comes with a capture paper. Now, I've mentioned before that capture papers are almost always after the war was over, and this bears that out. This is October of '45, and the pistol serial number is written right here in the J block. So that's near the end. AC-42 would have been Walther Factory in 1942. J block is near the end, and that's the paper that came with it and the name of the vet that brought it back. This one, capture paper, this is unusual in that it's a dual tone. Dual tone means blued finish here. That's blued, and then this is phosphate finish. You can see, especially on the frame, the phosphate finish is kind of a dull gray. And if we hold them side by side, you can see the difference between the blued finish. And then this one, BYF, was Mauser 1944, and it comes with these capture papers. In this case, they actually missed the suffix, so you see 4624 and 4624, and then that's in the D block, which is correct for the dual tone. That commands a premium just because dual tones are pretty popular, and it also comes with information about the vet. So his name is here, but it also is right here. This is William Schaefer. These are his, he was first sergeant. And then a little bit of his background, so you can look up when he enlisted, and then his honorable discharge, and he was from Connecticut. So a little information about the vet, and there's his fingerprint. If he ever committed a crime, we could find him that way. But he has served his country bravely and honorably and has since passed away. Now this one is a AC-40. There's a little bit of pitting on there. I can take some really fine steel wool and clean that up a little bit, but there's still going to be marks. You can see the nice high polish finish. AC-40, 1940, well, they made some commercial guns in 1939, but 1940 was the first military guns. You can see military proofs here. So this was Walther Factory, and it does have a numbered mag, close to being matched. It's almost 100 numbers off, so you can see 8532B, and here you can see 8650B. The grips are numbered to the gun, so everything is matching on this except for the magazine, and that one is a close match. I mentioned before, sometimes it's easier to see the markings with the white wax, and it drives some people crazy, but in this regard, you can see it was proofed twice on the back of the spine, an all-matching P-38 AC-40. That's kind of a rare gun. That'll go quickly. Nothing special about this. AC-43, so we saw a 40, a 42, a 43. You can see how dull that finish is compared to the high polish finish of the AC-40. You can see how over time manufacturing and the finish is deteriorated. And then one of my favorite stories, this one right here, I often will say, no one ever took a gun off of a German cook. It always came from a dead SS officer. This story is even better. I don't think the story could possibly be true, but let's take a look at the gun first. First of all, these are in mint condition. The gun is incredible. I think this is about what it looked like the day it left the factory. So it was hardly used at all. And I'm going to read the story to you from the owner. Well, the previous owner wrote out how his relative brought this home from the war. This gun was inherited by me. The story behind the pistol is that it was taken from a Luftwaffe SS lieutenant in the Pacific Campaign. Well, right there, think about that. Luftwaffe SS in the Pacific Campaign. I'm not aware of SS units being involved with the Luftwaffe. And generally speaking, there were no German soldiers helping out in Japan. But in this case, and I'd love to hear from you guys, maybe you have a relative or you know of some secret mission where the Germans were actually helping out the Japanese. In this case, it says they were helping with a runway project. That's not Project Runway. They were helping the Japanese with a runway project in Saipan. This gun caught my relative's eye, and he noticed that it was being carried by an actual German soldier. So he captured it and brought it home, and that's the story behind this gun. I find that very hard to believe, and I said, I will pay for the gun, but not the story. The story is very unique, and if anybody out there thinks that that is possibly true, let me know. But again, never could have come from a German cook. Included with this batch is a Browning High Power. Now, this was made in the FN factory in Belgium. You see it has a B suffix, which means it was made just before the country was liberated. So one of the last ones made under German occupation. You can barely see German proof marks, but there is a firing proof here and then very faint Eagle 140 here. And then if you look right here, there's an Eagle 140. These come with the plastic grips. Most of them have wooden grips. Again, late war production, dull finish. And it does have, again, you can barely see it, but right here there is a Waffen 140 proof, high capacity magazines. These actually were favorites among the SS troops just because of the high capacity mag, and they tended to get a lot of the guns, the sidearms, from other captured countries. So since we're at this great virtual gun show, there's a nice variety. I already mentioned the captured country of Belgium and the gun that they put out, but then also the French put out several. The French SACOM, this is also a French MAB, and then the French Unique. It's quite a unique gun, but in this case it was being made for the French army, but then when the Germans took over the factory, they produced them for their own officers, and there is the Waffen 20, which is the proof mark for the inspector, the German inspector, saying that the Germans took over the factory and then started making guns for their own troops. Finally, we know Poland was also occupied, and they took over the Radom factory, or the Viz factory. This is a wartime, probably middle of the war, because it has an R suffix. There's no slot here for the stock, but this is a middle of the war, dull finish Polish Radom used by the German military once again. You can see the Waffen 77 proof, and usually there's a Steyr proof here as well. Sometimes they're marked on the bottom with a Waffen proof, and sure enough, there's a tiny proof mark right there. And then let's talk about German Lugers. They would be up next. First and foremost, we see this is an artillery Luger 1915. The rarest date is 1914. That's when the war started. 1915 is also kind of hard to find. You can see its original finish, all matching except for the magazine. And you can see the halos around the number here. So that's the way it should look, and you know it's all original finish. This actually takes the cake, so to speak, because this is a 17, which is the most common date, 1917, artillery, 8-inch barrel. Remember, the standard Luger has a 4-inch barrel. The Navy has a 6-inch barrel, and then the artillery has an 8-inch barrel with an adjustable rear sight. Again, all matching except for the magazine. There's the Imperial proof marks, which means it went to the military. And here's what's very, very cool about this gun. This is the holster to go with it, and typically they're going to be dated inside here. And you can see the maker above the date, and that looks like 1915. So it's a 1915 holster, which is fine. And if I remove the boot, this is the stock that attaches. That's the Imperial proof. So it was approved for the German military. And the stock, after you put it in the holster, you can take the stock and attach it to the back pretty easily. That attaches on and then locks into place. And then theoretically, you could shoot it like a carbine. But here's what's really exceptional about this particular stock. Let's take a look at the serial number. Total remarkable find, because that is 6102. 2. And if we look at the gun, 6102. And then the 02 is the small parts numbered 02 throughout the gun, all matching with a beautiful bore. With the matching stock and holster. Dated a couple years earlier, but that's okay. They made the holster and then put them together later. This next Luger, those, by the way, are obviously World War I because of 1915, 1917. That's all World War I. This is World War II, but you can tell the style of the holster, the way the closure strap goes straight up instead of down to the side. This is a police holster. You can see the police eagle right there, and it's dated 1941. There is a serial number here, but it won't match. It is 1941, and so is the gun. So if we take a look at the Luger itself, you can see it's dated. It's actually a small date, 1941, made by Mauser. It's a Mauser Banner Police. Now, police Lugers, you'll see the sear safety right here. You see the test firing proof right above the serial number. See, the serial number is 7696, 7696. It's also marked number 1 up here, I believe. You can see the X suffix here, and forgot to mention on the serial, it also has the X suffix. So you see the sear safety, you see Mauser Banner instead of BYF, and then right there you see the police inspector proof, which is Eagle L. Very desirable gun with one matching mag and a police holster to go with it. Finally, if you watch my video about Black Widows that I just did, BYF 41 with the brown grips, what's this called? That's right, the Brown Recluse. Not really, but I had a number of people write to me and say, do you have any Brown Recluses coming through? Stay away from those Recluses because the bite is just as bad as the Black Widow. Here you can see it is 655 proof, which is also right here, 655 proof, and no serial number. So this was probably, it doesn't look like it was ground down, so it's probably an armorer's replacement part. All the numbers match throughout the gun, and this is not numbered, but it's a very nice example of a BYF 41 Luger. And by the way, if you're new to this, I just made up the name Brown Recluse, so don't take it seriously. So here on this channel, we are equal opportunity offenders. We go from one fascist regime to the next. This is World War II Japanese weapons. Actually, this was made well before the war, late 20s, early 30s. This is one of the earliest ones because it only has 3-digit. You see little pin pricking, but that's not unusual for an island country. When they went to war, they almost always got on ships. They went to other islands or other countries that they were invading, mostly for natural resources for their island nation. So you see 930 here. By the way, if I take the grips off, you have to be very careful, but they're also numbered to the gun. And then the magazine is numbered 930. So this is considered a baby Nambu made in the Tokyo Arsenal. Those are cannonballs, 4 cannonballs. They usually have some pitting on them, and I already described why. There's usually a tiny little proof mark right there, kanji marking, and then there's other kanji marking proof marks on the magazine and the different parts. Very popular among collectors and getting harder to find. This one is unusual. I wanted to show it to you because I've seen German holsters that would take a paper holster and mix it with some leather. I've never seen the Japanese do that. This has to be transitional because if you see a late war Japanese holster, this is a canvas and rubber. They made layers of canvas and glued it together. So canvas, rubber, it gets very, very hard, and this doesn't move at all, like if I have to open that up. You can heat it up, I'm told, with a hairdryer, and it's a little bit better. But this becomes very stiff over time. But this is what the canvas holster looks like. And usually you either see canvas or leather. I've never seen the two combined, and here it is. So we go from the canvas back of the holster, almost new condition, turn it over, and there we have leather. So this is must have been transitional between the two, and they just used up some parts. I like it. I've never seen it before. It's in good shape. All right, then we open up this sucker. By the way, I always check these pouches because sometimes you find there's be ammo in there, or sometimes an empty box. Often there's a spare firing pin. They did come with a spare firing pin, and that was because the firing pins are prone to breakage. Now, getting the gun out, it actually is very stiff. So I was able to pull it out, and it's a beautiful gun, but if we look down inside, there is a spare magazine. See how it sits down in here? So the spare magazine sits here. If it has a cleaning rod, it'll fit there, and I already mentioned the spare firing pin would go there. And when this is down inside there, it fits and the flap will close. But I won't do that again. Don't want to put excess scratching on the gun. If I look at the magazine, I'm sure it doesn't match. 103, and this is 162. So this magazine doesn't match, and I believe this magazine doesn't match. And that, yeah, looks like 088. So the magazine doesn't match, but this is from October of 1943, so middle of the war. You can see the finish is actually pretty nice. It's a dull finish, still doing the straw parts on the straw color small parts, and it's all matching except for the two magazines. But this Nambu is a Type 14, not a baby, not a papa, but a Type 14 Nambu with a very unusual transitional holster. Okay, we're whipping right through this gun show. Now I have some Colts. This is not like joining a Colt, but this is a Colt-made pistol. So now we're a lot closer to home. American-made military, this one will be an exception, and this is commercial. So let's start with this Colt. This is a model 1903, and whenever I get a nickeled gun, it's important to say, I don't know if that nickel is all original, and the only way to know is to get a factory letter. If it's not original, it hurts the value quite a bit. If it is original, it helps the value quite a bit. And so the only way to know is we get the Colt letter. So we see this is to the Colt collector, that would be me, and we see it's a 1903 hammerless pocket. They hammerless, obviously because it's hammerless, and it says the finish is nickel. The grips are not specified, not listed, but this was made in 1924, and it came out of the factory as a nickeled Colt, and that is going to sell at a premium. It's just a really cool find. Now, this Colt is not what you would expect because it was actually a license. This is considered the M14. This is the original holster that goes with this. Those of you who are familiar with it, it was licensed by the Colt factory to be made in Norway. So this is a Norwegian M14 Colt, and they made them all the way up to the beginning of the war, and then the Germans took over the factory. So really, this is good for the German collector. It's also good for the American military collector. It's also good for the Colt collector. So a little bit of everything, which makes this a very popular Colt. You can see the difference in the grips. Also, with the Norwegian Colts, they have the date here. This one has 1945. And in 1945, even though they made them in 41 through 45, 1945 was the only year they actually put a Waffen stamp. And this would be on the left-hand side of the gun. That right there is the Nazi Waffen stamp, or Waffen stamp. And also you'll notice that the small parts are all numbered. And that was unique to the Kongsberg Colt. I was in Norway and visited right near Kongsberg and talked to a collector there. They're very proud of the Kongsberg Colt. It's a beautiful model. Again, you can see all matching numbers from 1945. They made less than 1,000, so these are very desirable, very hard to find, but it is a licensed copy of the Colt used by the German Army, and therefore very desirable, very rare, less than 1,000. And now this beautiful Colt is actually right after the war was over, 1918. You can see the initials of the inspector. Nice condition, should have a dual tone. Yep, you see the dual tone magazine. This is worn a little bit more than the gun, so it's probably not original to the gun. The barrel, you'll see a P and an H, that's inspector. So World War I, you'll see the P and the H. That is correct for this right after World War I Colt. Here's another example. On the back, it's dated 1918. This came with it. This is the belt, the magazine holder, dated 1918. The belt is dated 1918, and then the lanyard. This one, same thing, beautiful Colt. This one has the Springfield Armory stamp. Great condition. Let's see if it has a dual tone. That's much nicer. Fits the gun a lot better. Dual tone finish on the magazine. 45 caliber, of course. These all the way through to present. The 1911 A1 and 1911 Colt come in 45 caliber. I already mentioned The holster, the original holster looks like that. And this one comes with a factory letter saying that it went to Washington, D.C., Ordnance Supply, and it was from 1918. Okay, I'm going to finish with these three guns. Maybe I'm saving the best for last, but this is captured. And here's the certificate, the documentation, and you can see the serial number of the gun. What I like about this pistol is it's in the SS range. It could be SS, but the only way to know for sure, because they all in the 331 range, they all were marked on the slide and the frame, but also the magazine should be numbered and matching. This is an SS magazine, and it's a bit off. It's about 1,000 numbers off, but that's definitely an SS magazine with possibly an SS gun. And the red grip, they only made for a short period of time. I'm going to do a separate video on the red grip, but you can see that's a wartime magazine. About 1,000 numbers off. So this is probably an SS gun. So this was taken from an SS officer. You can see he got a camera, and then this is the number of the pistol that he brought back from the war. He also, by the way, you'll notice October of 45, so the war was over. He did some shopping. It came home in his duffel bag. He brought home a bracelet. Now, whenever I show this, there's people who get on there and say, you mean he stole it? Not necessarily true. I think highly unlikely. Once the war was over, the military police took a strong hold on the occupation and tried to keep the troops in line. Yes, there was some looting that happened, but my father-in-law was there, and he went around to all the different shops and bought silverware and china and Hummels and mailed them home to his wife, and those are things that we still have in our family. And all the shops had a lot of used items because people had no money, people were hungry, they were looking for basic goods, and so they would turn in their jewelry, their anything the GIs wanted, so that we had a bracelet, a brooch, perfume, and even a nutcracker set. Not the nutcracker suite, but the nutcracker set. I really find it hard to believe that he would go in and loot a house and take a nutcracker set. We also see he picked up a camera for $30, so he paid somebody $30 for a camera. So don't automatically assume this involves looting. In fact, the Germans that were there at the time said they loved as long as the soldiers were polite, they loved to have the soldiers come and spend their money because, of course, getting money after the war was highly important to the civilians at that time. Let's move on to the next capture piece. We went from the SS with a numbered mag. This one actually comes from the Luftwaffe. So if I look at the serial number, that is in the Luftwaffe range. That's a Luftwaffe style numbering. So my next book is going to be about Luftwaffe guns, Waffen-proof guns, and police guns. Like the last one, it does have a numbered mag in the Luftwaffe style, but it is off a little bit. You can see 227 and then 220. This is in the Luftwaffe range. This is in the Luftwaffe range. So I'm sure this was taken from an officer in the Luftwaffe. Now, how it was picked up by this person, I'm not sure. This is Johnny Andrews, and he was a member of the 81st, I thought it was Airborne, but it's not. It's Airdrome Squadron. And I did look it up. They were stationed in England. They might have been in Germany at the end of the war. And once again, you can see that this is October of 45, same as our last one. The war is over, and he was picking up a souvenir. He was in a Airdrome Squadron and picked up a Luftwaffe gun. There's the serial number, 7.65. That's the capture paper to go with this. And I saved this one for last. We did look at some World War I guns that were artillery Lugers. This one is very unique. It is a Walther Model 4. And maybe some of you have never heard of this, but let's take a look at a couple of things that are unique. When I first got this, I didn't realize what a treasure it was. First of all, it has an imperial proof right here. That is a crown over a letter, which looks like an F. So a crown F, imperial proof. This went to a German officer, 7.65. But the maker, instead of being Walther actually licensed. They couldn't keep up with production. So this was made between 1915 and 1917, somewhere in that range. About 30,000 of them were made, and that's an estimate, 30,000 of them were made by Mercedes. That's right, the Mercedes, later Mercedes-Benz. The M in an oval on the right-hand side indicates that it was made by Mercedes during the war, and so Walther licensed to a couple of producers to make guns to keep up with the demand, just like Walther did in World War II, where they licensed it to Spreework and to Mauser. In this case, Walther licensed Mercedes to make this Model 4 officer's pistol that went to a German officer in about 1915 or 1916. Bruce just reminded me, whenever I go to a gun show, I usually get hoarse by the end of the show. And doing a virtual gun show, I'm exhausted and my voice is getting hoarse. But I can't wait to be at the show of shows, because we're going to have our party Friday night. You can go to our website if you want to buy a ticket. If you're going to the show of shows, make sure you come to our party by buying a ticket and some raffle tickets. And if you're not going to SOS, look into it, because it's a great show, best show of the year. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll be coming to you virtually real soon.